Welcome to the I Ain't Lying podcast. Today we have special co-host, Mr. Mike Berlotti.
Thank you
Mike
for
and
having
I-
me.
You're welcome. Well, you're the co-host, man.
I'm the
So
co-host, yeah.
This is the one of many. Mike and I go back a long way. But the reason why Mike is here today, he has a guy that he's known for 30 years, Mr. Steve Graus from DC Sports. Welcome to the show, Steve.
Well, thanks both for having me.
All right, man. You're like every man's fantasy without boobs.
That's good to hear.
I mean, you own a sports memorabilia store, man.
Well, I think the reason I got into it almost 40 years ago was the passion for sports and being in Detroit, growing up and living and dying with the success of the team to kind of live out that fantasy. It is a dream to work for the teams and with players and live and die a little bit with the success. And I've always been a retailer since I was 16 years old.
Well, that's what I want to get into. Where'd you grow up at?
Well, I grew up in Warren. I went to De La Salle, and
Go Pilots.
as some of the great people in this room do. And I started out DC Sports with a couple graduates. I was 74, they were 75. John Moore and Dave Schulte. And we were going by a show window. I think it was here in Troy. And Bob Feller was signing autographs. And it was 1986. And the cards were stacked high. And I go to John, look at this business that these people are doing. He goes, you want to start a company? I said, well, yeah. And John was an accountant. We founded Graus and Moore back then. And after a few years of doing the shows, the card shows.
Were you an accountant?
No, I was actually retail.
Who was the Graus? And Graus and Moore?
Well, I was the Graus. He
Oh,
was John Moore.
I gotcha.
Yeah,
Okay.
And then Dave Schulte came as our third wheel, but he didn't get on the letterhead.
Sounds like a law firm, Graus.
Yeah, because that's what I thought. I thought he had an accounting firm, Graus and Moore.
No, it wasn't an accountant. And if you see the way I run my business, you wonder, I do need an accountant. So we started out, we're doing the shows, traveling to Toledo, going places like that. And then in 1991, I challenged them or kind of coerced them to open up a store in Centerline. And so we opened up in Centerline. And a few weeks later, a gentleman comes in and says, hey, my name's Dave Sell, and I rep artist Doug West. And sports art was big back then. Before I knew it, we were selling lithographs that were signed by Iserman, Fedorov, Probert, and that got us on the map. And then all of a sudden, we got into the autograph business. So, after about 2-3 years, we were a licensee of the Hockey Hall of Fame, doing postcard sets, but we were known for our autographs. And in 1996, I got into the mall as a temporary store, and we were in Lakeside Mall for 27 years. And at one point, we had 3 stores, but that's how I got into it.
What does DC stand for?
Actually starts for the Diamond Connection, and I'll tell you a quick story on that. Is Diamond Connection because back then baseball marketing was the Diamond Collection. So I want to be close without trademark infringement. So I went to Diamond Connection. All right. So the big sign had a baseball diamond on it. And then we get into the malls and we do these charity auctions we do where guys are throwing their charge cards at us. And we would be getting 10 calls a month from ladies that weren't getting any bling because Diamond Connection was showing up on their statements. So then we changed our name to DC Sports. And then we went to DC Sports. The internet comes out. DCsports.com is a gentleman out of California. So now we've evolved into Detroit City Sports. So when people ask me what's the DC stand for, I tell them Detroit City, but actually it was the Diamond Connection.
Because I was doing my research and it said Detroit, City Sports.
Yeah, Detroit City Sports. I think our logo has a skyline in it, and I just think that's flowing where Detroit City and sports kind of all goes together. So that was one of those meetings you had in 5 minutes, and then it turned out to be a great move to come up Detroit City Sports.
So is most of your inventory all Detroit sports?
I would say 90% of it is.
90% of your inventory?
Again, because now and we'll probably talk about this a little bit later, we do a lot of signings. So most of our signers are Detroit-based. The apparel we carry is Detroit-based. And, we do have that person coming in and looking for, let's say, someone from the Bears or someone from Green Bay. When New England, Tom Brady, we carry that merchandise. But Detroit is what we're known for.
Now, when you started DC Sports, there was no internet.
That's correct.
or it was just started.
Yeah, just started.
And to get an autograph, you'd have to go to places like yours, right? And then there'd be comics were big collectibles,
Right.
what have you. Can you tell us how the internet has transformed your business?
Well, it's definitely changed the business entirely. As I think at one point, back in the heyday of the Red Wings, 97, 98, we were selling 1,000 Red Wing jerseys lettered up because, to your point, they would have to come into the store and buy them or order them, with your own name on it, or an Eiserman jersey back then. They would have to come in the store. Wow, with the internet, we rarely sell a hockey jersey unless a person comes in and is going to come to a signing and wants it done. That's just how the internet has changed it, because the internet now, you've lost that personal touch, how I built DC Sports. Is you would come into the store and you would say, hey, I'm looking for this. You would go find that for the customer and he'd come in and pick it up. Now it's, hey, I'm looking for this. And if you don't have it, they're going on the internet and buying it. And sometimes good and sometimes bad experiences doing it.
Well, there's a lot of bad, right? Buyer beware.
Yeah, 100% is. I still think that's our trademark, is the trust we have that people have in us, is that they're getting an authentic autograph or they're getting an authentic jersey and it's lettered up properly. I think that's our strength still today. But the internet, again, if you order something online, you can possibly return it. But if it's a bad autograph, now you're fighting with the credit card company and things like that.
So with the autographs, because that was kind of a big thing, right? When you first got started, and explain that, like the scams that went on, and the guys, and I mean, my understanding is you'd go to some of these major auctions and spend six figures on something, and you find out that it was a fake.
Well, yeah, I think back in the day, all you had was a paper certificate. And then some companies started putting a hologram on there. And that hologram was tied into a database. But now, as the evolution, the holograms now are tamper resistant. They've got a secret code, a QR code that it links right in. But in the early days of the internet, if you right now punched in some of those codes, they're non-existent, or that site doesn't exist. So you almost have to get it re-authenticated by someone. But yes, I would say the internet opened up Pandora's box as far as the memorabilia business.
So from a standpoint of autographs, most of your autographs, you bring the signers in, you're watching these guys sign, and then you can either buy when you're there or you'll sell them in the store.
Right. I think 99.9% of the autographs that are in my store right now, I've been there for the signing for over the last 30 some years then. So what people have done, again, based on the internet, or maybe here in Detroit, the way getting across town after our work, we just had a couple Tigers after the game. People can order with confidence online that we're going to get the item signed for them. We can, we video it, or they can show pictures of the player signing. And then it comes with our hologram by Beckett Authentication. We have a Beckett witness person, and they just order it online and it's shipped to their house, or they come to pick it up. Back in the day, they would have to come to that signing and get it. There wasn't the sophistication now with our system. So when we were doing the signings with some of the Red Wings after the championship, people were staying overnight in their car, going to be first in line.
Wow.
And the deals we were doing back then were 1,000-piece deals. So you can imagine showing up, this was in Centerline, and there was a frotter that was abandoned, and you'd come there in the morning at 7 in the morning for a 10 o'clock signing. There's people sleeping in their cars. They're waiting for that autograph to be first in line.
Wow. I want to see how good you are. Let me see that, Pete.
All right.
So, Steve, a really good client of mine just recently gave me this piece. So I want you to take a look at it. And I brought it to you. Well, let's show them where it is first.
All right.
And it has a patch, the 2002 patch. Take a look at this.
Yeah.
So if I brought it to you,
Right.
it's been in my office. I haven't had a chance to bring it over. What do you look at? And you mentioned that you have an authentication company. Take a look at this. See what markings or you would look at to see. And like you said, there was a paper that there's one in here.
Yeah.
So
Well, this person got in person at Gibraltar Trade Center, which back in the day was they had 2 locations, and they brought a lot of players in, Ali, and a lot of the players that we have had at that same time and now went through. So that's Brett Hall. From doing a lot of signings with Brett Hall, I can tell you 99.9%, I'm using that number again, that's a Brett Hall autograph.
okay.
You sure Hammer didn't just sign that in his office?
No, I've seen his handwriting, and it's not his. But also,
That's a side hustle, Mike.
Right, I know. That's a
but also, we use Beckett Authentication, and Beckett Authentication comes into our store 2 or 3 times a year. Steve Grad started coming into our store about 10 years ago, got us in where now we can sell people's collections and we get this authenticated for you. So that's that third party authentication. And in today's world, with some of the things that have just happened or, come into light the last few months, I believe people should get that third party authentication by a company like Beckett or PSA that would authenticate that that's real.
Does PSA ever come to the store, or do you have to send it to them?
No, we reached out to them when we were starting this, like 7 to 10 years ago, and they basically said, no, we're based in California at the time, and we don't have the crew that can do that. Because authentication is such a specialized talent, so to speak,
Right.
That you probably could train someone, but even the top authenticators, people send it to them. Like if it's a Babe Ruth or some of that old merchant, Steve Grad, Brian Sombrero from that started Beckett Authentication. Their authenticators send them that autograph if it's tough to realize or to authenticate. And there's not a lot of new people coming up that can authenticate that.
So what's probably one of the most memorable, expensive items that you've ever sold?
Well, expensive. We through our auction business, we probably sold some Jordan framed jerseys. One item we just recently sold in the last year or so is we had a Steve Eisman stick where he scored that overtime goal.
I tried to buy that, by the way.
Against St. Louis, and I gave
The
you
stick?
The stick.
the stick. And the reason it's the stick, well, it's got authentication. Is that Steve wrote the number 50 with the date, and it's one of a kind. It truly is one of a kind. And that's the kind of stuff. And people say, how's your own collection? My own collection is not that fantastic because back in the day when we were getting that business going and starting, is if someone wanted to come in and they wanted that item that was probably going in my personal collection, I would sell it for the right price. So, and then I didn't have a finished basement back then, but now what I do is I'm a little bit more selective, and a lot of the things that I collect are something that I have a story behind it. I've got a production line item or an original 6 item that I watched the players play, date myself a little bit, and I watched them sign it. And almost every player we had, and I was thinking it on the way here, I've probably done signings with 700 players,
Wow.
1,000 autograph signings.
But you have things that mean
Yes.
something to you.
Yeah.
It's not a collectible like, oh, I got to have this in my collection. These are more meaningful for you. I saw Gordie Howe play,
Yeah.
so I wanted to have a piece.
Right.
It doesn't really matter what the value is. It just has meaning to you.
Right. And like to say the 2005 All-Star game was here in Detroit. And I went to that game with my children. And we had the 3 seats and we were there for all that. So I had an opportunity to trade for, and it was all authenticated by Major League Baseball, a ball signed by both teams. So I don't know what the value is, but that value to me is, it's a memory I had with my children. And I think both of you will realize those special moments, whether it's a concert or an event that you went to, where were you and who were you there with it? And that's what I think this whole industry is driven by, is the memories. And I think that's why baseball is so part of Americana, is the tradition of baseball. The first game I went to ever was my father. My dad introduced me to baseball, although he hated all the home teams. It would make me root for them more because I was battling my dad. And I will tell you,
Why did he hate the home teams?
I don't know. Just that, maybe they weren't managed right, or I didn't ownership. But my dad was a blue collar man. He was blue collar and worked, 2 jobs so I could go to the high school I went to. But I remember the game, the Bird pitched against the New York Yankees at Tiger Stadium. And I remember being there in the stands with my dad. Now, I can't remember what I had for lunch yesterday, but I can remember that game. And that's what I think what I do is so fun to talk about and to experience, because I like sharing that with all the customers. And when we do a signing with a player, those meet and greets, even for a few minutes, I hope they take that memory and put it on their wall or frame it up on their office shelf and say, hey, I remember when I got that done.
Well, and I think what's super unique about you, Steve, is the fact that you worked for the organizations and for the Illiches who own the Tigers and the Red Wings. And then you kind of grew up in this business and then also now have your own shop and focus on the Detroit team. So I think that's a unique aspect of what you bring to your business as well.
What did you do for the Tigers or the Red Wings?
Well, Tigers, when I was with Blue Line Equipment, and they, part of the Illich Corporation, and I would always have some marketing ideas of what they should do, and I would text Denise Illich, or back then maybe call her or send her an email and say, hey, I think we should do this in all the stores. You should sell, jerseys or T-shirts in all the stores because you own the team.
The Little Caesars.
Little Caesars, why? And you've done the toughest thing. You've got people to come into your store. So while they're buying a $5 pizza, buy a $10 T-shirt or something like that. That they didn't go too far. But I'll be honest. But then
they bought it in '88. Is that when they bought? No,
I think just after '84, because the Tigers won in '84 under Tom Monahan.
Under Monahan, and
the
they bought it
right after. It might have been '88, but it was shortly after. So then, we get into 2006, and I knew Steve Quinn, who was the CFO of the Tigers at the time. And I had actually the idea to do the all-time Tiger team poster, which was handed out in '99. And so he knew of me, and the Tigers were in first place in '06, kind of under Jim Leland on a surprise. So I said, hey, we're going to do some signs and some magazines. And the first one was Polanco. And how do we sell them? Can you get them framed for us? I go, sure. So I went down there one day, walked in the next day and said, hey, I hear this frame. He goes, well, how are you going to sell them? And I said, well, I come with my daughter, Ashley, and we'll come to a game and sell them at an 8-foot table. I said, okay. So they set me up with a sports service person at the time, and we're selling these frames and talking about it. And sports service came by and says, hey, your numbers are in our SKU from the Montgomery and barbecue that was up in right field. Why don't you bring more of your stuff? So the next day, you didn't have to ask me. I had 3 tables of items. I had items signed by Verlander, Al Kaline, and they were tracking all my sales. And like the first game, I sold 4 items, and they're all excited I sold 4 items. Well, let's fast forward to the World Series. We're selling 140 items a game. So Steve Quinn comes to me and says, or he posts that there's going to be a director of Authentics, which is selling the game-used merchandise. And I applied for and got the job, unfortunately with the caveat that I had to sell my store at DC Sports. So as I'm working with the Tigers, and again, now you're talking the game within the game. They weren't selling the game-used baseballs. People were giving them away. They weren't selling the game-used jerseys. People were handing them out, or they were being used for spring training the following year. So I established from zero a pretty lucrative business of selling game-used merchandise, the game within the game. And that went on.
So what were you selling then?
Oh,
bases and
baseballs and broken bats. They were authenticated. And at the time, I believe only 16 of the teams, or maybe less, half of the league had an authentication program. So, other teams were calling up and saying, how are you getting all this autographed merchandise? Because I had a relationship with Brandon Inge and some of the other players at the time. So we would pay them to sign merchandise for the team, and then we would sell it on the concourse. Again, I had an intern that worked hard. A couple of my friends helped me out at the booth, and it was fun. The team was doing great. So that's what I did for the team for the year, and we were very successful, and I think they used that model for many years. And it was
but they wanted you to sell your stores,
yes,
in order to keep that position.
Yeah, and I at the time I was a little naive, and I should have had a lawyer look at the contract and say, hey,
Oh, we should have a lawyer.
yeah, well, that's a discussion for another day. But I don't know how many times we've had to use them for just different things. You know, I guess the experience. But if I had my lawyer look at my contract, and he would probably said, Steve, you're never going to sell this company in 6 months. You need a little longer. You get valuation. And I never got to that stage because I can honestly tell you, when the Tigers were going on the road, it was myself and a security guard working on that, because working on this inventory I was getting, what price we were putting it on. And again, there wasn't a price guide back then. It was what you could get for a signed Brandon Inge jersey or, Todd Jones. So there's different pricing. And what I established also was after a Thursday game, you had a couple players come up and sign autographs after a game for free. But it was building that brand of Detroit Tiger Authentics, which is still going on today. They moved it from Section 133 and now it's in the pro shop. But the reason I went on that discussion is I think the experience that I had working for the team, and I love the team atmosphere. Dave Dombrowski was a great boss. He's the best. And the experience I had in negotiations with the players and in just how to be a little bit more aggressive in getting those autograph appearances. That's why now we do about 50 signings a year with all different athletes.
How do you get the athletes?
Good question, Amr.
What do you do? Who do you reach out to? Do
Well,
they come to you? You go to them?
A little bit of both. A little bit of both is I think you have to do a little research, but I think now with our reputation of being around and doing the signings and treating the players right, is that when a player comes to Detroit, whether it's being drafted or via trade, is that they'll reach out to us and say, hey, I just had Mike Berlotti. He's my guy. He just got traded to the Tigers. When do you want him? And that kind of helps, and it feeds off each other because these agents usually are not in Detroit. A lot of them are around the country, mostly New York, and they would send a player to me because they know they're getting treated right and fair, and they're going to get paid on time.
Nice. Who have been some of the most popular players you've had along this lines?
Back in the day, like I said, the heyday of the Red Wings, before you could buy the internet, the lines were 800 to 1,000 people in line for a McCarty and a grind line all at one time.
For the Red Wings?
Yeah, for the Red Wings. Yeah. Those lines were people wanted to start team jerseys. So they take that jersey you had here, Brett Hall, and get everybody to sign it.
Yeah.
Team merchandise is very unique, but again, it means more to that person getting it than probably another person, because unless it's completed, like an 84 World Series ball or a 1998 jersey, how do you, it's missing 6 guys. Well, it might be the top 6 guys. So that really affects the value, and how the autographs hold up after 20 or 30 years is very important. Those are the big lines, but currently, or today's world.
Is that still a big thing though today? Like having a jersey with everyone's signature on it? Like, is that still big? I mean, I know when I was a kid, that was a huge thing.
Yeah, it was. But unless they win something, it doesn't have that same value as if you would have individual items signed by all of them.
Okay.
So let's say the Lions currently. When we were in the mall, we left the mall last year, we had about 400 people for St. Brown. It's 400 people for Hutch. Now, there's some people working on team signed helmets. But as you've seen, we've come close to getting to the Super Bowl, but we haven't won it. So I would direct people to get individually signed items. And I think that has better value, and I think that has better resale value down the road.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I want to switch gears a second with cards.
Yeah.
Because cards have gotten huge now. Right. And the amount of money people pay for cards is truly mind-blowing to me. Now, you've been dealing with cards for a long time, right? So when I was a kid, you would have a whole set of Topps cards or remember the whole year?
Oh, sure.
Is that still popular? And if not, like, where has this business driven into? And Amber has an example as well.
Well, I'm going to get to this example here in a second. I think we started out with cards. But when I got into the malls, it was very difficult for me to educate the 16-year-old, 17-year-old employee what the grade was on a card, or what the value was of a Jordan card. I think it was easier for me to do apparel and knickknacks and autographs. Hey, here's an autographed helmet by Matt Stafford, and it's at this price.
Yeah,
you
it's
know?
$1,200,
Right.
whatever.
Versus, hey, that's a Jordan. Will you take 600 for it? And back and forth that happens in the card industry. Okay, so then cards, the memorabilia was strong and is still strong today. But I think to your point on cards, now with what happened with the COVID, when COVID came and people were sitting at home and they're going through those cards and they're saying, well, I'm sitting at home, I'm going to fill out that set. Or, hey, I want to go buy that Jordan rookie. So people are digging through their basements or garages or whatever, pulling out cards. The grading companies were just sitting there and they could grade without interaction with people. So that business exploded again. And
It's almost a separate business, right? I mean, it's almost.
yeah, it is. And the cards are hotter than ever.
Right.
But I think people now are going towards individual cards, the one-of-ones, the autograph cards versus, hey, I'm going to open up this
A whole
box of
set,
cards and
yeah.
make a set.
Well, and the athletes are buying these cards now too.
Well, the
And
athletes too. Well, again, that's a recent phenomenon that, hey, I want my own card
Yeah.
and I'm going to trade you a jersey for it.
Right.
So not only did cards become graded and that blow up with the PSAs and the Beckett's of the world, but then tickets to event, whether it's, hey, I went to the Beatles concert or, hey, I have this ticket for the 68 World Series. They just started grading tickets. So now tickets have exploded. And what Amr has in his hand is from one of the collections is that this is from the called shot, Babe Ruth, 1932 World Series. And the collection we had it from, the gentleman had letters that he wrote to some of the players that played in this game and asked them if they feel Babe Ruth called the shot. And all of them said no. It was more that he was arguing with the Cubs and he pointed either at the team or at a player, and the sensationalism of it now, 90 years later, is he called the shot. But this ticket right here that we just recently had graded there's only 122 of them that have been graded, and this is like the 19th or 20th of that.
Wow.
So
this is going to go to auction.
Yeah, it's
so
gonna go
you
to
won't.
auction.
This doesn't get sold in a private sale.
no, one of the things we have, and we started this about 6-7 years ago, and it carried us through the pandemic, was selling people's collections. And by selling people's collections, again, maybe they're downsizing, maybe they're moving to Florida and they don't have basements. Maybe unfortunately a family member passed. So what we do with DC Sports is we come in, we pick up the whole collection, we sign an agreement with them, and we sell these items on consignment. This is probably the best baseball collection we've had. When we first started, the first one we got, the gentleman had 5,000 to 7,000 items. So we went from, hey, we're going to dabble in this auction business. Hey, we better find a program that can handle this.
Yeah.
So now we sell about 900 items a month on our auction site.
Let me ask you this, and asking for a friend. There's
Okay.
a lot of unique stuff. You brought a pretty unique piece right there. Mike, can you pull that up? But how many guys have a signed Kim Kardashian, bro, in their collection?
I've only heard of one, and I think he said he's by right. I don't know if it's for sale, but I told him
Everything's for sale.
all that back when I started the business, everything was for sale.
Well, it's not for sale, but I had to get it framed because I caught somebody doing some inappropriate stuff with it. So
Hey, you ain't looking at
we
me.
can frame it, that would probably help.
there you go.
But-
But why'd you put that away?
Because you were talking about your Kim Kardashian.
No, man, you got
we talked. The story is again what moves the needle for me a little bit is I think the entertainment side of our autograph business, and you see these now with the Comic Cons, those are exploding also.
Oh, yeah.
Hulk Hogan, who unfortunately just recently passed away. The Mike Tyson, who we've had a couple times, but Kevin Costner. I love this movie for the love of the game. Okay. And I love it because of Costner. I love it because it's Tigers he's wearing. I love it because Kelly Preston. I just love that movie. And my friend Eric, when Kevin was coming through with his band a couple years, got this baseball sign for me, had it authenticated. And I thought, how do I combine that?
That's really
with
cool.
the movie?
That's cool.
Yeah.
No, I could have done Field of
So
Dreams.
unique. So unique.
Yeah, so to me, that's one of my favorite items. And when people come in my basement, This is what I talk about.
So this is your private collection?
This is private.
Yeah.
Now, we just recently.
But it's for sale right now for $1 million.
No, I don't know about $1 million. $500,000 for you.
Yeah.
But for usually, Kevin Costner did the Fanatics Fest in New York, and we happened to have a booth there. And I wanted to meet him. I never met him. However, they did have some merchandise left over, so we bought some of these posters signed, and we bought some more baseball signed, about a dozen of them. So we're selling them in our charity auctions, and I'm actually having one kind of replicated that will be for sale or and for one of the charity auctions we do. And bought some, Durham Bulls signed jerseys, some bats. That's the unique stuff that I like for the auctions that we do.
So Steve and I met probably 30, 35 years ago because we both went to the same high school. We were involved with a charity dinner for the high school.
All Cubs.
Yeah, no, Pilots. But so in that dinner has grown tremendously. And Steve spends, how many different charities do you do in a calendar year? And you've raised, just for our deal to sell alone, hundreds of thousands of dollars, probably millions of dollars over the years with the different auctions that he's done.
We're going to a golf outing that Steve put together on Tuesday. You could talk about that, but
first I'm going to address Mike is that we probably do now 60 to 80 charity auctions a year for events. So we're averaging more than one a week. There's some Mondays in the golf season that we'll do 2, 3 on the same day, and it's logistically tough.
Yeah,
I'd like to be there in all of them because I believe I give it the personal touch. My sister Sherry, who I have to mention, does a great job. She's my right-hand person. Sherry, I probably would still not be business if Sherry would join the team. But Sherry's more of, hey, come pick up your 10 items or 15 items and bring back whatever doesn't sell. And that's great. And because we can't be in every place. And I think that's the one thing I want to tell your listeners and everyone, if they've got a charity event, and it usually starts out with, we get all this stuff donated, so we really don't need items on consignment. But when I could tell you a Taylor Swift guitar goes for $7,000, and you're not going to make that money on consignment on most other things. Or, we just had recently a Tarek Scuba ball went for $1,000. That charity would have made that $800 or so profit if they wouldn't have had the ball from us. And there's absolutely no risk. What's hot right now? Well, Lions, things like that. And that merchandise is doing very well. And some charities are selling duplicates. St. Brown helmet, Hutch, Goff, Gibbs. Those are the top 4 on the Lions, and they're making some good money for charities. What I had last year is I help out a lot of these charities, and I help out Leader Dogs of the Blind, and I help Detroit Dog Rescue. How can I help them more? How can I raise more money for them? So I had the idea of doing a golf outing. It's next Tuesday, and the reason I chose Tuesday, and every person I send the flyer to says, why'd you choose Tuesday? And I said, well, because it's International Dog Day. Now, I didn't market that as International Dog Day, and I probably should have. But this Tuesday, we're doing a golf outing for 4 different dog charities. And hopefully it's an annual event. And I'm looking at a date for next year. And I think I can double the field and get to a full house next year.
Where is it being held
We're at Cherry Creek.
Cherry Creek.
Next Tuesday. We do probably 5 or 6 events at Cherry Creek.
Okay.
And the reason I like them, it's close to the store, close to where I live. They do a fantastic job for events. And they got the banquet center. The track's pretty good. I think people like playing it. So, and they're easy to work with. When we go out on the road to some of these events, and we go Grand Rapids, Traverse City for these events, you come there and they say, hey, I hear you're here for the auction. We go, yeah, where would you like to put our stuff? And they go, well, we got 1 8-foot table for you over here. And you go, I need like 4 8-foot tables. I don't have to worry about that Cherry Creek. They got that set up. They move them for me. Their staff's great.
And just so you know, Steve's a master at these charity events too, because if I'm bidding on something and Amr gets it, Steve knows I'm going to call Mike in about 15 minutes and say, hey, I got another one of those sitting in my store if you wanted it.
Hold on. You can't really say that, Mike.
I'm going to have him make a retraction on it. No, what I would do is go to the Mike and say, hey, if you want one, I have a second one, but you have to match it.
Well, yeah,
with a charity.
exactly, right.
And that's a win-win.
It's a huge one,
situation.
yeah.
Because
But that's why I'm saying it funny, but you truly are a master at that, and it's a great thing for the charities.
Supplying demand.
That's right.
well, you gotta. I think that's again something that personalized touch that you can't do if you are not there.
Right.
Is that you get the pulse? I'll just tell you, we just did Joe Kosher's outing, right? And the last item you take on your list of items is usually surprises you. So I take a blank guitar and working with Michael DeRay Newman, I call him, and he's helping out Joey. And I go, hey, I got this blank guitar. He goes, I'll get it signed by every celebrity as they come in. So as they come in their separate parking lot, he gets it signed by players. All right. Yeah, that guitar went for $1,000. And they had 2 people bidding it up, and I've already got one sold for next year.
Wow.
So that's the expertise I think that we bring, but it's for doing it for a long time and getting the feel for that different organization and what works for them. What works for them doesn't work for everybody.
Yeah.
So I have a question. You mentioned Hulk Hogan.
Yes.
Can you tell us when someone passes what the value, how much the value, because obviously they can't sign anymore.
Right.
Pete Rose used
Yeah.
to sign, that was his job.
Right.
He was banned from
Yeah,
baseball. Can you describe is there a science to how much the stuff is worth now? What does that look like?
Well, I think you used your expertise on it. You know, when Mr. Kaline passed away, stuff doubled overnight and kind of flattened out. I think Pete Rose, we didn't raise our prices right away. And so we had a lot of internet business at the prices we were at, which were fair. And then gradually we've taken some prices up over time. Hulk Hogan didn't do as many signings, I said recently, you know, because of health issues. But I believe his items have doubled. And I think they'll hold because, and I was going to get to this eventually, is I think you stick with the legends in the industry.
That's the advice you always gave me. When I come to the store, stick with the legends.
Stick with the legends. You know, Miguel Cabrera, he's making it to the Hall of Fame. You know, Otani, which is whole another
Kim Kardashian.
Kim Kardashian.
I don't know what Hall of Fame she's going into. There has to be one.
She's probably in a couple. But I think that's what you stick with, and your value is going to be solid. And if it goes up, it's a bonus. And that's why I also tell people, buy a collectible because you like it. And different than the charity. You're giving to the charity, you're taking some home. People like giving to get. And so that's where the auction works out good. But I think if you're buying an item and you're looking at our store and you're saying which item is going to go, buy it because you like it and you'd like to hang it on the wall. And if it appreciates over time, it's a bonus. I don't think you go into collecting to say, hey, I'm going to buy this Kevin Costner piece from you and I'm going to flip it in 30 days.
Right.
It's different in the cards. The cards do that today's world. But I think the memorabilia is, hey, I'm going to put it on the wall. I'm going to give it to my son. I'm going to buy it for my dad, Father's Day, Christmas. We get a lot of that gift giving. And I think that's why I try to instruct people. Hey, you talked about the 4 different Lions. You know, stick with them. They've got 10 great other players. But if you want a good investment, you want something that's going to hold value over time. You know, even Gibbs, he changed his number. A lot of people calling up, hey, what do I do with this jersey signed number 26? I said, well, it's his rookie jersey. That's how I look at it.
That's not going to change.
It's not going to change.
That's not going to change.
And it's probably not going to make any more.
Right.
So that's how I would treat that. You stick with legends, and I think Gibbs has the potential to be a legend. I would say St. Brown's probably, if his health stays there, is going to be sure shot Hall of Famer. Same thing with Hutch. Goff. Goff's a sleeper. You know, high profile player. In any other city, he'd be, you know, the king. And I've met him a few times, and he's the most down-to-earth player. He collects stuff. Talk about collecting.
Yeah.
He's got the pulse, and you never feel aloof around him. Yeah, and
He's like a nice guy.
he's a great guy, and you root for the guys like that.
Sure.
I would say that's one of the fun parts that I've had. Sparky Anderson. When you walked in the room with Sparky Anderson, he made you feel you were the most important person in that room, even though you were probably in the bottom 10%, is that he made you feel special, you know, and guys like Magic Johnson. Now, we were fortunate enough to do signings with Magic Johnson 3 years in a row when he came to visit his mom for Thanksgiving. And the first time he comes in our store, here's Magic Johnson, greatest player, in Michigan basketball, right?
Michigan State.
Michigan State, but I mean the state of Michigan.
Yeah.
And he comes in our store and he goes, hey, time is money and money's time. I don't want to change pens. I want this stuff flowing. Same thing with the crowd. And my crew said to him, Magic, don't worry, we got this. So he goes through and the crowd is 300-400 people, back room's another few hundred pieces. After he's done, he stands up and goes, you guys did a great job. And that's why he came back to us for 2 more times.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
I want to ask you a question. How has, we talked about Michigan State, Michigan, the NIL, how has that affected this business?
Well, I think it's the same thing. I think people that are trying to turn around and maybe make a quick dollar or jumped into it, I have been more cautious because I don't think, and I still don't think there's a lot of direction with the NIL. If you go to Michigan and you get a team signed item by them, okay, and there's some of those opportunities coming up, probably 30-40% of those players might not graduate from Michigan. They might transfer out.
The portal.
So Bryce Underwood has a great upside, but if he decides that he wants to go to Alabama in 2 years because they're paying him more money, what's your Michigan item they'd be worth? So we've taken a wait and see. We have done signings with those players, but mostly people have brought them into our store and we host the signing for them. So our risk is mitigated.
What does that mean, host it?
Well, we'll take a percentage of what the retail goes for.
Okay.
We do the operation. We sell the tickets. We take the online orders. We move the people through the store, and we take usually an inventory position in our back room, but we're not cutting the big check, so to speak.
Steve, do you get caught, the growth and popularity in this business is just skyrocketed, right? I mean, between the television shows, this Ken Golden, this, all these things, the Pawn Stars.
Sure.
So the value of these businesses has gone up. So just from a pure valuation standpoint, are you getting calls from these national companies saying, hey, you got a great presence in Detroit and, we want to buy your business? Is that happening?
I don't think it's happening. I do believe there's some people that would like to. Let's say Fanatics, and Fanatics is the king in this industry. Fanatics would probably not buy our business because there's so much inventory that they weren't there to put their hologram on. And unlike Beckett, which they wouldn't like that third-party authentication. I would say in the early days of Fanatics, they were buying up a couple companies like ourselves, but I don't believe that's in their game plan today. They would start a store and put it, in Detroit somewhere.
Okay.
And that's what you're possibly going to see with some of the national players. Rally House is here, a really good competitor in the apparel side. I think you see Dick's doing great numbers as far as
Dick's Sporting Goods?
Yeah, as far as apparel.
Yeah.
I don't know if they're going to get into the memorabilia business. Again, we're a
So
hybrid.
you just have a unique business model.
Store.
Yeah.
We're a hybrid store. Is that we've touched on probably 5 different categories as we're talking.
Yeah.
We do autographs, we do apparel, we do the knickknacks, we
Charity.
do charity, we do the framing, we do the auction site where we sell people's collections. So I wear a lot of different hats on the same day.
What do you do when a guy like Amr calls you and says, "Hey, I want a Kim Kardashian signed bra"? Like, where do you go out and try to research that for him, or do you just turn that client away?
We try. I probably should have a person dedicated to that type, but most people reach out to me. I'll delegate it or look a little bit through some of my contacts to see if there's items out there.
Mm-hmm.
For example, for one of our charity events, they were looking for something, Sopranos.
Mm-hmm.
So we went to the National in Chicago, and the first day I went there, and we had a booth there. The first day I went there, I went looking for a Sopranos piece, found a original movie poster signed by James Gandolfini.
Oh, wow.
And it was authenticated with a letter, and brought it back for that auction. And again, it was the first item to get a bid.
Yeah.
And so you feel good about that.
Sure.
So now there's some times where you can't find that Kim Kardashian item that Amr's looking for, but
She came to me, by the way.
I'm sure she did.
She applied for a job at the law firm where she became a lawyer. And I said, look,
well, that'd be a great representation, and you probably get more views than this podcast.
oh, yeah.
Well, and you have unique things in your store. Like for the boys, my son Joey, the Tyson signed, glove. Those are really cool things for Charlie. I think you love those shoes, those Cabrera shoes. Those are super cool.
We had a good deal with him that he would come in and bring some game use spikes, and his penmanship is impeccable.
Yeah.
And so those are great items. And there's only a few of those made. You know what I mean? Some players wear the same pair all year, or, some other players change batting gloves every at bat, it sounds like, or every game. So it's like that unique stuff, and what you've seen in a lot of people seen our store at the back room. We can't display everything as big as the store is. We can't display everything, and you want to rotate that a little bit anyway. So you have some unique items in the back, and then when people come and say, how much is that? And it may be going to a charity, or you may say, hey, I've got this unique Kevin Costner item. I've had this again. I brought this in as a sample for what we're going to do with our these other baseballs we got in. And I don't know how many people said, hey, is that for sale? Right. And it's going back to my house. But and that's what happens in our current store on Shaner Road here in Sterling Heights. I've got like a sub back room. So that's where we do our signings for the players in the back. It's where they do their quantity signings. And when a football player comes in, it's usually full of helmets. But there are some unique items back there that I can't display. So when they say, hey, I'm in for a charity event, or hey, let me take in the back, my friend Dante Rosa brings his friends through our back room just to kind of, hey, let me give you the tour, like a museum.
Yeah.
I should almost, that's kind of like, we can't display everything.
Sure.
But that's how some of the unique items are discovered.
Okay.
So the name of the podcast is called I Ain't Lying.
Okay.
You can't disappoint, Steve. You got to bring it. We need a story where after you tell the story like, man, I ain't lying, that really happened. And I know you got years and years of experience. I need a story.
Well, I probably should have started out with a book and wrote all these episodes or signings down, because a lot of that happens during a signing. Okay. Well, I'll give you two, and they might not be, expose of some of them, but the one is I'm working for the Tigers in 2007. And again, I'm doing all the game use merchandise, and it's a small group of us doing it. And they would send you, Major League Baseball would send you a milestone. Hey, these milestones are coming up. So whether it's opposing player or your current player, and sure enough, comes up on the radar that Curtis Granderson was a star back then, 2007, right? Great player, great ambassador for the league in Detroit. He's going to, if he steals a base in this game or any game coming up, he's going to be the first guy to do 2020 in X amount of years for the Tigers. So sure enough, the first inning, and I've got the grounds crew alerted because we're going to change out that base, whatever base, second or third. So the first inning, bottom of the first, I don't know who we're playing, but I know Bonderman's on the mound for us.
Jeremy.
And good pitcher in his day. Granderson steals a base, and as soon as he's done stealing a base, grounds crew guy runs out and gets the base. He comes over to the dugout area where I'm there, or actually behind the home plate. The authenticator's there, authenticates it. I take it, I run up to my office because we're going to give it to Curtis, right? As part of the team, I work for the team. So a few minutes later, my phone's blowing up, and I don't know who's calling me. It could be a customer, it could be one of you guys. You never know who it is, right? It's Jim Schmenkel, the equipment manager. I go, Schmenk, what's up? He goes, Leland wants to know where that base is. And I go, Jeremy Bonderman.
And Leland's managing the team right now.
He's managing the team. He's in the dugout. And he's telling Schmenkel find out where that base is. Now, Jeremy Bonderman, we're fighting for a playoff spot, and Jeremy Bonderman's giving up like 4 runs in this inning, and he's worried about where the base is. I'm going, you got to be kidding me. I said, don't worry. It's in my office. And sure enough, after the game, I returned it to the dugout or the clubhouse, and they gave it to Granderson.
That's cool.
Now, the second one I'm going to go with is, I just mentioned that earlier, is Dennis Polanich, former Red Wing. Everybody loved the tough guy. He gets us tickets to a Red Wing game. He came in for the signing, and that night we go to the Red Wings, and Fedorov was on the team at the time.
91.
And they're retiring his number.
His number.
Maybe we can get the HDY suite for that game.
There you go.
So...
well, that's another, we'll talk about that later, but yeah, I want to get a suite for that.
There you go. And so he goes, hey, you want to go with me to the game? And sure enough, because I don't have to worry about parking. I don't have to worry about a ticket. So we go and we watch the game, and I don't forget the score of the game. But he goes, hey, you want to go to the dressing room? And I've never only been in the dressing room a couple of times. I don't hang a lot with the players. They're not my best friends. It's a business, usually. So we're sitting there, and if you've ever been there, it's a real small hallway. And we're going to, if I were going to wait for Fedorov or some of the stars come through, and Anna Kournikova walks by, and she was in her heyday, and whatever.
She's probably still a good looking.
She is, and she's got whatever pants she's wearing on her or painted on her, and Polonich looks at me and goes, "You got something for her to sign?" And I'm going, here we are with all these world-class athletes, and she is a world-class athlete too, but she was striking, and I could see why he wanted. He lying. That's what he wants to do.
He lying.
You weren't worried about Iceman or Fedorov. He wanted an autograph from Kournikova. I didn't have anything for her to sign.
Yeah.
Well, I would have made a couple of suggestions, but
I had no bra at the time for her to sign.
That era, though, of hockey, the Russian Five, the Eisner, that team was so much fun. I still to this day watch highlights of Doxu. The guy was a magician on the ice. It was incredible.
The only time I ever watched hockey. I had just gotten married, and my father-in-law was a big hockey guy.
Okay.
But 97, 98, and then 2002. And I really haven't watched hockey since. But even if you're a hockey fan during that era, and that was a drought, right, till they won in 97.
Yeah.
It was 97, 98, wasn't it?
97, 98, went back-to-back, yeah.
And then the Pistons won 98, 99.
Right. They won 88.
Oh, 88.
89 and 90.
Yeah, and then 2004.
Yeah.
But that Red Wings team, like I think you were saying, whether you liked hockey or not, you're watching that team. It was incredible.
And that's why the place was sold out for many years. We rode the Red Wing business for about 20 years, because they made the playoffs 24 straight years or something like that. And so we knew that was almost our second season. And again, the Lions were non-existent, right, back then. And the Pistons had their hits, but the Piston fan is, I would say, unfortunately, a small percentage, just like hockey is. But back then, we were Hockey Town. We were Hockey Town. It was tough to get a ticket. That Russian Five was, and again, still to this day, something signed by the original, Russian Five with the Constantino pre-accident. Those go for great money in our auctions because there's very few of those items that are completed.
Yeah. Do you have any?
I do not in my personal collection. Probably had to sell them.
Okay. So I have a question. Leland, did you ever meet the guy? What kind of guy was he? He seems like an old man with a cigarette that would just tell you the way.
Well, he's very unassuming, but you're absolutely right. Now, again, one of our early charity works is helped out a friend of mine, Dan Ebal. He wanted to help out Holy Redeemer. And he had done something with Sparky, and he did something with Bo. But he says, about 13 years ago, he says, hey, we got Jim Leland. He's coming to Holy Redeemer. And it's in the Blue Room, which if you look at it is like a garage. It's so dusky and stuff. And so we go there, and Jim Leland's his first guest speaker because Jim was involved with the Tigers and befriended Sparky and all that. And so he gets Leland there, and about 200 people, and it's packed, but it's real hot. It's in July. And so
he's managing the Tigers at the time.
He's managing the Tigers, but they were in a stretch where they were, questionable as far as the relief pitching, And so we had people give questions when they came in, but Dan had to screen those questions like, hey, why are you putting that reliever in? And things like that. They didn't want Jim to get upset, right? So he screens the ticket, the Q&A. So Jim speaks for a little bit, does a Q&A, and kind of like 15 minutes into the Q&A, and they got games the next day. Dan gets to the microphone and goes, okay, one last question. Jim's got to get to sleep tonight because, he's got a big game tomorrow. Jim grabs the microphone and goes, I don't know what he's talking about. I'm going to the casino after. and it just lit up the crowd because he was there and he just made light of it. And that's what's saying is, when you go to events and they've got a celebrity, or you go to it's almost like getting it in person, that relaxed feeling of these players. Kirk Gibson is great at it. Lance Parrish, he's got a book that he's still signing. I went to one of those. That was an enjoyable hour. The big wheel. The big wheel. And he tells some great stories. I'll tell you a story that he tells. When we had Pete Rose in about a year and a half before he passed, and we were scheduled to have him again this year, and he passed away suddenly. But the last time he was in, he goes, "Hey, do you ever see Lance Parrish?" I go, "Yeah, we see him from time to time. He's around." He goes, "Give me a bat." And he takes a bat and he signs to Lance Parrish, a great catcher, Pete Rose, hit king, 4192. So I have that in my store, and we move stores, right? And so it's in my basement. And a few months ago, I seen this basement. I go, I gotta get this to Lance. So about a month ago, he's doing a book signing in Rochester. And I go to the Rochester Library, and I get there before everyone, and he walks in the door, and I go, "Lance, I want to get this out of my hands into yours." And I give him this pen. He goes, "Oh my God, I got to tell you the Pete Rose story." And I go, "What Pete Rose story?" He goes, "Well, back when we were barnstorming, we were in Japan, and I believe the Major League Baseball was on strike." He goes, "So it's like an all-star game, and Pete Rose is there, and all the stars are there, and they got racks of their bats." And he goes, "Well, I'm going to take a bat because I don't think, Pete's going to miss one here." So he takes a bat and he brings it back to the States, and he sends it to one of the guys that is in our business in Detroit, and he puts it into postal mail, and he follows up, and it never gets here to Detroit. So he's tracking it around, can't track it. He tells me a story, and he goes, "Here, I stole a bat from Pete, and now someone stole it from me." And he goes, "And you gifted me now a bat signed by Pete Rose, made to me." And he goes, "I'm using that as a prop." And he started out that hour-long discussion about his bat with that story. And the whole crowd was I can get a chill just thinking about it. That's how it kind of came full circle. But those are the behind, again, I talked about earlier, the game within the game, that when sometimes you get into the inside to some of these signings, or meet these guys in the back room, you see a different part that you really don't see on.
That's awesome. That's awesome. All right. Thank you.
Thanks, bro.
Steve, thank you. Great seeing you, my man.
All right.